Welcome to the Shopify Masters podcast powered by Shopify. I'm David Gaylord. Thanks for tuning in to the Bushbalm Miniseries. For the final episode, we're going to be chatting through all things team and culture. And for that, I brought on my two special guests, Tim and Rachel. So welcome, Tim and Rachel, to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't we do intros? Rachel, why don't you kind of go first?
Sure. My name's Rachel Kerr. I've been with Bushbalm for officially a year now, and I look after most of our brand and marketing. Some have paid, mostly organic, everything from influencers to partnerships to building a community online. And I'm really happy to be here.
Welcome. And
Awesome.
Tim?
Yeah, and I'm Tim, and I am one of the co-founders, and I guess I've given myself an official title of CPO, but I do a lot of different things. So I kind of take care of all things product and getting product into the hands of our customers. So anywhere from manufacturing to logistics, shipping, that sort of stuff, and then kind of dabble a little bit into finances and HR and kind of all back of house sort of stuff here at Bushbalm.
Yeah, and you don't give yourself credit enough for the design work you do.
And there's some design dabbled in there a little bit.
Yeah, all the packaging stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess, Tim, you've obviously been around the longest out of anyone on the team.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe tell us your version of the founding story.
Yes, I guess it depends on how detailed you want me to get here.
Not super detailed.
Okay, so I'll leave out some of the finer, more intimate details.
Keep it PG.
It'll be PG. It'll be TV or podcast friendly. It all started with a bit of a weird, fluky discovery on my honeymoon, and I kind of took an interesting idea through self-testing, and I pitched it to David on a bus trip to, I think it was a work conference that we were on our way to, and I pitched it to David and everyone else on the bus, and everyone kind of laughed except for David. He's the one with the he had a kind of a smirk and was like, "Okay, yeah, that could work."
And the idea was scented pubic oil.
It was, yeah, definitely different than where we're at today.
Yeah,
but,
it definitely a use case though. If you wanted, it's more of a man product, right? Scented pubic oil, but yeah, definitely a use case that I thought was a cool idea.
Yeah, and then fast forward, you jumping in and saying you wanted in. Very much a side hustle on the side of our full-time jobs for 3 years.
3 years, yeah. And I guess most people watching would know or might not know is that we were at Shopify. Right. So this was starting a business, and starting a Shopify store especially was promoted. They want you to do that to try it.
We did it part of a contest, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an internal build a business contest.
Yeah.
We lost.
We lost, but long term, I think we've won.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So maybe let's go into the early days of when it was a serious side hustle. I guess what was the dynamic that we had back then?
Yeah, back then I wouldn't say that we had a lot of structure. It was kind of a very much this needs to get done, so let's do it, and who's going to do it? We co-operated quite a bit of stuff. Shipping was handled by both you and I at one point during Bushbalm. Marketing was all you. I don't know a lick about marketing. Design was all me. Although you were doing some design work.
I did all the advertising design. You did all the packaging design.
All the packaging design. Yeah. And then website was split. It's very, very, very much a blended effort early on. But when things started to get a little bit more serious, it took a lot of time and a lot of effort on top of our full-time gigs.
Yeah. I think the things that became obvious were manufacturing was a ton of work and effort and time.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden shipping was a ton of effort, and your apartment or your house becomes chaos with boxes and packaging material everywhere.
Yeah. I remember a photo of you that you shared. I think you filled your bike basket full of samples that we were shipping out. Yeah. And I think that was the moment we were like, we can't do this. Or you're filling a Canada Post box full, so then you needed to go find another one to fill full, and then find another one, and then I think that was we can't.
And that was the moment. That was when I remember we got a 3PL. Yeah. So we got a third-party logistics to handle all shipping, and that actually felt like we hired 2 full-time staff to take over shipping, but it was just a partnership that we needed at the time.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, that's the early day. And then we slowly changed as even before Rachel joined the team, we got our first contract manufacturer to help us do a lot of our liquid filling for our products. And then, Rachel, you joined would have been about a year ago now.
Yeah.
And I guess what was your first impression of the brand?
First impression, I was pretty blown away. I still am every day. But it's super impressive what you two did as a side hustle, because it quickly became my full-time hustle. And even that was a lot, still is, but it's really awesome, exciting. You learn something new every day, and super inspiring to work with people who are super dedicated to making something work so successfully.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I guess one thing, just so everyone knows, is so Rachel joined the team and started and was our only full-time person. So you ran most of everything happened for, I guess it would have been at least 6 months.
Yeah.
Or around that last year.
You and I were still full-time Shopify at the time.
So what was that like? The first
full-time employee at Bushbalm.
It was interesting. I think I'm lucky David let me visit his apartment a lot, where I could squeeze in some questions in between his meetings or at lunch. But one of my favorite ways to learn is kind of to just jump right in and dive in. So it was a great opportunity to see everything that goes on a day-to-day, got to learn a lot about shipping and wholesale. And I think it's made me a lot better at my role now, because you kind of learn how the day-to-day turns and what's important and what you really need to stay on top of.
Yeah.
But yeah, really cool experience.
And that was like it was to the point where you were like doing something and then you'd ask me a question and then I'd answer it and then you'd hold all your questions for certain times.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one thing too. Like I know we're going to talk more about like building a team and culture and dynamics. And in general, that is one thing that I think has held with us is if you're founder bred, you end up doing everything and then you know what goes into everything. And it can be, for me, I think at times it's to a fault. Whereas I think for everyone we've brought on, they've taken okay, I'm going to learn customer service. I'm going to look at Instagram. I'm going to understand like what goes into it. And then that way they can like make more informed decisions. Mm-hmm. The one that I think is interesting for everyone listening is around just like the structure of Bushbalm now. So say from your side, Rachel, what does the marketing kind of team look like?
So the marketing team right now, if we're counting David, which we absolutely have to, there's 3 of us, where we work really closely together. We have one team member, Emily, who kind of handles a lot of our graphic design needs. So anywhere from like inserts you'd see that go out in press mailers to Facebook ads to Instagram stories and everywhere in between. She's definitely our big creative brain and thinks long-term brand versus the day-to-day, which is something I think really important when we're growing. And then another big part of marketing, which may not seem so obvious, is our customer service team. So when I was onboarding, customer service is kind of where I learned the most and got to understand our audience, our customers, and our community that we're still building. So on that team, we have 3 official members. And with that, there's customer service for our wholesale, there's customer service that happens on social media, and then there's customer service that happens for any inquiries we get from people who've purchased the products. And we spend a lot of time on making sure that's a seamless experience. We want people to be really comfortable and confident with reaching out to us and obviously make people happy, turn them into repeat purchasers, and help them feel comfortable in this community that we're building online.
One thing we've talked about is like, it's a challenging space to be in because like people have to ask very personal questions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or send in very personal
yeah,
photos.
Yeah, exactly. Which is fine. Like,
yeah,
that's what
we love it.
That's what we do, right?
We really want to come off not as like an automated response that you're getting, but more as a friend you're talking to about a skin challenge or concern that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then the other piece that you didn't talk about yourself on press, brands, working with like all kinds of media. We do a lot of influencer work.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say like, oh, they're the influencer marketing person. But it really is like, oh, no, they're the brand team member who handles like so much stuff that varies in all kinds of ways.
Mm-hmm. The influencer and press outreach kind of feeds a lot of our marketing strategy. So if we know we're launching a product, we look for people that we think would be perfect, whether they're micro or macro. Same with finding media placement for products that we think would be a great fit. And that's kind of a job almost in itself, but it's great that we have this creative team who's pretty active on social media on their own. So we're always finding new angles or new people to reach out to and partner with.
Yeah. And then even behind the scenes, I think you said it, or someone said it the other day, you sent out 200 packages that were just gifting last month.
Yeah.
So like that's a lot of outreach.
Yeah.
Someone's got to ship those boxes.
Yeah. Thank you, Megan.
Yeah. Amazing. And then Tim, so kind of Rachel runs a lot of the marketing side, kind of the brand side, press side, and then you do tons of the back of house.
Yeah.
Maybe just explain like the dynamic of that team and how it's structured.
I think probably the best first hire on my side of the business was bringing in somebody to take care of operations. You've got shipping, you've got orchestrating purchase orders with manufacturers, making sure we don't run out of product, so forecasting and all that sort of stuff. So Gabe came in, I think it's 6 months ago now, 6 or 7 months ago, which was fantastic. And then we recently just hired a product development manager. So I was previously doing all this work, and we hired a very experienced individual in this area. And so what they are in charge of is basically taking over all of our existing SKUs, shaping them up and improving, as well as like building out future products on that side. We also, early on, I think just before Rachel came on board, we also started working with a consultant who came in and really whipped us into some shape ahead of our growth that we had going into Q4 of 2020. And he came in and took care of kind of like operations, shipping, supply chain. And now we've kind of graduated him into a more of a formal business operations and strategy role, director of that sort of stuff. But yes, and then everything. I wear a few hats, so I also take care of the finances and HR and making sure that cash flow is good and people can spend what they need to spend to grow the business.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the other thing too, maybe we dive into is the idea of like consultants versus like the team structure we have.
Yeah.
Because we did bring Pat in as a consultant to help with supply chain.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was like a hard decision to make, to understand. And now he's really helped us get to a point where we're not sold out all the time, which is kind of what we were.
Which was a big issue. Yeah.
And then the other ones that we work with, I suppose, Rachel, we just started to work with a PR agency. Mm-hmm. So maybe just describe that kind of so far.
Part of my job was securing press, and obviously we love getting it, and we see the return on it. So we wanted to do a bigger job, more wide scale, and tap into more of the states. So the PR agency will help us grow awareness, help strategic retail partnerships. They're great for all things creative and just helping us give different angles that we wouldn't actually think about for our products. So I think that's second agency that we worked with.
Yeah.
With design as well.
I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, we have the design agency that we kind of work with on a monthly basis. Mm-hmm. The other ones that we have actually that are kind of smaller and different is we got an audit done from an SEO agency, which we might work with them more in the future. And that essentially, I think all of it is either we don't have time for something or we need like new expertise.
Yeah.
So that's where most of the marketing ones come in. Is like SEO, we kind of understand it, but we're not quite there. Even Facebook advertising, we've kind of worked with agency on that, just because the expertise is kind of to a different level.
Yeah.
But internally, we've kept a lot of the actual. One of the hardest things I think is content creation, and we brought that inside and done I think a great job of building that, which is a lot of work on its own and kind of building the community that way. Mm-hmm. And then on the supply chain side, Tim, who would you consider an agency or?
Yeah, so we just started working with a new regulatory agency, so that basically makes sure that everything is up to par for like packaging and label claims and making sure all your translations are accurate and correct and kind of to the standards of the US and the Canadian markets. If you want to expand into other markets like the UK, they would help with that sort of stuff. I also work not necessarily an agency, but a contractor in China who does all of our correspondence with any of our manufacturers that are in China. And so she takes care of all of that.
She's been working with us for probably 2 or 3 years now.
Actually,
now.
Yeah.
And what is, because I think that's rare, having a contractor or someone in like another country that you work with. Mm-hmm. So she works with all of our manufacturers. goes to factories, does quality assurance,
quality assurance, does site visits, and just to make sure that everything is communicated correctly and samples are approved. And so she does a lot of proofing of samples for us, and, so that we don't necessarily have to wait for it to be shipped here. And negotiation, like she does a lot of negotiating for us to like lower prices.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other agency I think we work with is on the shipping side. So, there's two parts to it. Like we have our supply chain 3PL that we work with to do direct-to-consumer shipping, our wholesale shipping. And then on the other side of it, you work with, I believe, a broker or an agency to...
Yeah, there's a couple. Across. Yeah, so like when dealing with like overseas freight, anything to do with sea or air, we've got a company that we work with that kind of handles all of our paperwork and all of that. And then we have a broker that does all the clearing, anything that's crossing into any borders. So whether it's going into Canada or going from Canada into the U.S.
So maybe talk a little bit, Tim. I know we've had some challenges kind of back in the day. So maybe talk about one of those biggest challenges you've had early on at Bushbalm.
Like the time I wanted to quit.
Yeah. Talk about that. Yeah.
It's funny, like, as one of the co-founders, you want out. No, it was, I think this is as things really started to pick up at Bushbalm, and all the work was becoming a lot of hours. And I was working full-time at Shopify. I actually had another company that I was running on the side. It was a clothing company. And so here I am running 2 side hustles and a full-time job, and I'm about to have a kid. And so I think things in my mind came to a bit of a head, and I was like, I got to drop something. And I don't know why I decided Bushbalm.
And to be fair as well, your wife was heavily involved in Bushbalm.
Heavily involved. Yeah, she was. Yeah, so she was taking care of all the shipping at the time for us. She was doing consultation for design for us, doing some creative illustrations and all that. So she was actually a big part of the business. She said, like, I'm done. She's like, I'm about to have a kid in like 2 months. She's like, I'm finished. And she's like, Tim, you gotta think about this yourself. Like, I need help.
Yeah.
Like, I want to help.
And it worked out. Well, I remember the conversation vividly, and it ended up, we had a good conversation about dynamics and who's running what.
I think it felt like a breakup.
It did feel like a breakup.
I called you aside and I was like, David, I got to tell you something. It felt like a breakup.
It's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
Literally, I think I actually said that line.
And I said, give me a chance to prove myself. And that's kind of what we did, though. So I took on more. I took on more responsibilities around the Bushbalm house, per se. And I took on shipping, I believe, and then manufacturing. I forgot how we changed it, but it became a bit easier back then.
Yeah, there was, and I think we, like, soon after, we also had a conversation, like, if this is going to continue to work, we need to outsource a bunch of the work. And I think the way we looked at it, or the way I approached it with you, is like, if we're breaking even and the company is still growing, then like that's okay. Like I don't want to make a dime from this right now. I just want to grow it, but I also don't want to be working 10, 15 hours on the side of Bushbalm, every few days. Like it's like, it was like, speaking with manufacturers and all that sort of stuff, you're up from, 9 p.m. until 2 a.m. communicating with them. So that was.
And I guess one approach we took early on, which I think is maybe unique, was since it was such a side hustle, our thought process is what can we do to keep it as low maintenance as possible, where hopefully the business can run on its own without us being heavily involved. And that was, we made kind of deliberate choices to say, okay, we'll outsource shipping as soon as we can. We'll outsource this as soon as we can. And then we'll, even manufacturing, we thought, okay, we got to find the right partner to do that.
Yeah.
And then wholesale, as another example, is it was something that you can't scale quickly, automate it, or change it. So we chose not to do any wholesale until we were ready. Yeah. We did all kind of online advertising because you can scale that pretty quickly. I don't know if that kind of, that was a hard time, I suppose.
Obviously, I stayed.
Yeah.
You convinced me to stay with you.
We worked it out. And I guess the other thing that's maybe important to note is at the time, it was our first time ever delegating or assigning roles. So like I took over the shipping and that was my kind of portfolio. And I took over the marketing and that was mine. And you took over the back of house, all of those tasks. And I think now at Bushbalm, as far as dynamics, that is, I think, something we do quite well.
Yeah.
Is everyone kind of is in their lane. And there's a few things now that aren't in a certain lane, like wholesale sales. It's kind of like floating around. It's like its own department, like one single person show, but it's kind of chaos in like a good way, I think.
Because we're all kind of obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Want it to grow. So
we want it to be a success, but it doesn't have like it has a home, but it's a very kind of off the desk
a
home.
Shared home.
A shared home,
Yeah. It's an open door policy.
Fair enough. Yeah. Maybe should we get into some of the characters around the office? It's maybe a weird question to ask, but what is the office culture like at Bushbalm? Because we just got an office, would have been 3 or 4 months ago. So why don't we, maybe Rachel, just go into that a little bit.
Sure. It's obviously, I think, a very fun place to go in. It almost doesn't feel like work, but a lot of work gets done because I think we're super like mission driven. We all want things to succeed. It's open concept. So if you hear somebody struggling or wanting to bring in more wholesale accounts, we kind of all jump all over it. There's usually 5 or 6 of us there between Monday to Friday. A lot of creative personalities. I think everyone's become pretty close friends, which is really good and exciting. I think when you're growing a team to want to be around the people you work with.
And the office vibe is Kiana on the team calls it a vibe check.
Vibe check.
Yeah, and we would hire people who don't pass Kiana's vibe check, but it is one of those things that we do bring into the office. It's like, hey, will you bring the energy up in the office and make everyone kind of move forward in the right way?
Yeah, she's our hype girl.
Yeah. But also, so Tim, you work almost fully remotely.
Yeah, pretty much like 99% of the time is remote.
He's almost past the vibe check.
Yeah, almost. I think I'm like 3 more visits to the office away. That's a bucket list.
With working at Shopify and working at Bushbalm now, I think we've both seen companies that work fully remote. And we worked at Shopify a lot, fully remote for many times. So I guess maybe talk a little bit about how you make remote success in kind of that half and half environment.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I've been doing remote work for 6, 7, 8 years now. So I was like I did graphic design as contract work before, right from home. And then Shopify was pretty much entirely remote. And so transitioning into Bushbalm remote, that was really easy. Although I do wish I was in the office more. I'm like in an hour and a half south of the office. So it doesn't necessarily work for me to come in every day. But I think the way I'm balancing it right now is just like meetings. Like I enjoy, especially when, now we have a boardroom set up in our office, which is great. It looks official. It experiences official. But I get to see everybody there sitting at the table, and I think that's inclusive for me. I think that's important. Like there's a lot of meetings where it's like one-on-one, David and I, or Gabe, who I work with closely, and you get that, like you get a little bit of that in-person experience. But I think the boardroom one actually, for whatever reason, I feel like I'm there. But I guess it's hard to say like how I balance the remote and life, just because it's so natural for me, because I've been doing it for so long. I've made myself a semi-soundproof office in my basement. I can't hear the kids much. I got 2 young ones under 4, so they make a lot of noise.
Yeah.
But I guess you can just kind of build an environment where you can be productive, and
right.
It just works.
And one other thing that you probably don't take enough credit for is how organized you are, and how would I say, like operationally sound, which bleeds into the rest of the team who's like less organized and kind of less official.
Yeah.
Where you like have taken that and passed it on slowly through.
I'll take that.
You structure us.
I'll take that. There's some days where I don't feel that way, but I guess you put in certain things in place kind of helps with that.
Why don't we get a little bit into new hires, new roles, and kind of what they brought to the table. So maybe we'll start with the process. We were looking to hire someone for product development, R&D, cosmetic background. We weren't quite sure. So Tim, maybe just describe a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So I think this experience was incredibly eye-opening for me. We really strived to find somebody who was well established in the industry, and my perception going into it was that like somebody in product development in like the cosmetic and beauty industry there wouldn't be very many people available in Canada. That was just my perception going into it. There's, I just didn't see that. And so early on, I decided that I'm going to work with a headhunter, somebody who, like a recruiter, and find ourselves some candidates. Through that process, it was interesting to find out all the different people that were available, how many companies actually operate within Canada, how many people are in the product manager and development space. So the pool went from, I thought it was going to be very slim because we wanted to hire within Canada. We wanted to hire specifically within Ontario just because of how we're set up. But what I thought was like a very, very small pool ended up being very large. LinkedIn was a fantastic resource as well. I posted on there, and that's actually how I got the applicant who we ended up hiring. We didn't end up hiring through the recruiter, but it was I wouldn't say it was difficult, but it was long. I mean, when you're investing, and especially like as the more senior roles that you get, the more money that is kind of involved, right? And so you want to make sure you get it right. That you don't take some of the spend lightly. And so positions that you hire for in this space, maybe there's more pressure, or I felt more pressure to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
And so it was drawn out. I mean, for us, like, I think typically we hired, we were able to hire roles within first month or 2 months of posting. This one I think took 3 or 4 months in total from when I actually posted the role to when we hired.
And the one thing with this role too, when we were doing it, we had some amazing candidates, phenomenal,
fantastic,
like the experience people brought to the table.
Yeah,
it's a unique space where going through the process, I didn't realize how attractive we are as a company, and people want to like join a startup where they have an opportunity to build and do something and start new products, which to me I thought, we're pretty small. I'm not sure people will be interested, but the interest we got was amazing.
Yeah.
And then it showed as well, one thing that we've maybe taken for granted is the fact that we are all like very go-getters. Like we do things and things launch and we make sure they run quickly. If we don't have things done, like Gable package boxes, like we're always doing everything. Mm-hmm. So that was a hard thing to understand for this role. And I think it feels like we got this specific hire right.
Yeah, very right.
Just because, we really, there's so much to do at a startup that it's hard to say just do the high level things that you're meant to do, right?
Yeah. And I think that's what, ultimately that's what ended up standing out the most in the interview process with the person that we ended up hiring was yep, I'm ready to start tomorrow. Yep, I'll do anything you ask. Yep, you want to develop this many products next year? Yeah, I'll do it. Even though it's probably way too many. It's like yes, and I'll find a way. Which is huge. Like that's our team is like a yes and we'll find a way type of environment.
And everyone's interested kind of in everything.
Yeah.
Like that role has nothing to do with influencers, and she comes with a wealth of knowledge of like who we should partner with, who would be interesting for us. So it's fun that everybody's genuinely excited about everything that Bushbalm has going on.
Yeah, totally. And that process, even just hiring, what I've realized in the past, depending on other roles, is like every person you interview becomes a potential hire in the future, whether it's like then or later on. Mm-hmm. And we have a few people even from that job posting and also other like marketing postings where every time we're hiring now, I think of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, okay, maybe it wasn't the time, but maybe it could be the time.
Yeah.
That's just one thing I've realized is interviewing isn't about hiring for the role. It's like building the relationship for the future potentially.
For sure.
Anything that you've underestimated that Bushbalm kind of has put in place at the time? I'll go first. One thing I've underestimated completely is just the concept of TikTok and how it works. We've been all over TikTok lately. I've underestimated how important it is to get there early for something. And then when things are later on, it's more important to be on the forefront. That's kind of one thing I've underestimated in this industry.
And I think being comfortable and confident and being okay with testing things, like we try and make as many TikToks as possible now and have fun with the team doing it, but we're also not going to be embarrassed if one doesn't work. We'll learn something from it, or we'll find another creative way to use it. But going back to the team, just like David said, we're really into TikTok right now. Mm-hmm. So I feel like a lot of the time during the day, somebody will randomly send something and it's a TikTok that's going viral, or like, how can we do something similar?
Yeah, I think for me, it's more around the wholesale and large retail space. Mm-hmm. And I think going back to the hiring thing you were saying there, David, about like you didn't know how desirable Bushbalm is to work for. I think I've always in my mind like, we'll pitch to the larger retailers when we're ready, and we're ready when we've done this, and this, and maybe we're more established, maybe we have our name more out there. And I think I tend to underestimate how many eyes are on us maybe right now, and not how easy it is to get into this large retail, because here I am sitting next to Rachel, who does all the large retail. But doors open fairly easy right now for us, and we could have said, hey, let's pause for another 6 months, and that probably would have been my suggestion. But like, here we are, large retail is very much on our doorstep, knocking and waiting for a little piece of Bushbalm. So it's very cool.
And even on the retail side, and just for anyone who's like running an e-commerce business, it's one thing that I guess I've underestimated is taking advantage of all the eyes on you and making sure it's easy for people to like reach out. Because like some of our retailers now that are the larger ones they've reached out in our contact form, and maybe we should have a large retail intake form or whatever it is. But even the same thing goes for our small wholesale accounts, like having a form for someone to fill out to apply or whatever it is. Like that opened my eyes, because now we could see like how many we get a day to apply for our wholesale account. Yeah. So just seeing that, I'm like, whoa, there is like a lot of demand for what we're doing. Some days it might not feel like it, because say Facebook ads aren't working well or whatever is not working well. But when you break it down over like the month and the year, it's like, holy, we've got a lot.
Yeah.
We're driving traffic, and the traffic isn't just the direct-to-consumer person, it's the buyer from wherever. Like that's really what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. It's exciting to see that happen as you're growing a team, because we hear different reasons for how people found us all the time. But a big retailer that we just partnered with found us on Instagram and loved how our page worked. So it's awesome to hear things like that and be like, yeah, well, we have a dedicated team now who's looking at that all the time and making sure we're always present, always looking great on brand. So it's exciting to have those wins while you're growing a team.
And the one thing I'm poor at probably with building a team is the question I'll ask is, how do you guys perceive celebration at Bushbalm? And how much more should we be celebrating? Because I'm not much of a celebrator. I struggle. I really do.
I think we do a pretty good job. I mean, I think, again, like I said, everyone's so excited that's on our team, which is the best feeling. But I think we've hit like not a lucky streak. We work really hard, but we've had some really, really good news the past month. So sometimes I think we need to not slow down, but take a second and be like, whoa, it's been 2 weeks and these 4 amazing things have happened that weren't even on our radar for this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard to like sit back and look back in the business.
It is. I mean, from a remote point of view, I actually feel like it's pretty good. So we have specific channels that are set up for things. We've got a PR channel, we've got an influencer channel, we've got a manufacturing, wholesale, and all that sort of stuff. And I do appreciate from you guys that like things are posted there. So like, hey, we just got this PR press, or hey, we're now working with this influencer, or hey, Emily just posted this morning, hey, we reached 10,000 followers on TikTok. Like, right. And like I wouldn't have known that if that conversation just had have happened in the office, but here it is shared with everyone. Right. So from like my point of view, I actually think it's fairly solid. Mm-hmm. And we just hired somebody who else is primarily remote. So then now we've got 2 remote employees of the 9 that we have. I think it's pretty good job. Give yourselves a little bit of credit.
Apparently
I think you do okay.
So.
David, you say you don't celebrate.
We'll have a big holiday party.
Yeah, that's
it.
Party. Pending
celebrate Black
restrictions.
Friday. Yeah. Everyone wants to celebrate Black Friday.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed we are still in stock.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing. Everyone and every team dynamic is going to face this Black Friday.
Yeah.
Is staying in stock.
Yeah.
With all the supply chain issues. So Tim, why don't you tell me a little bit about kind of what actually made this a success in the early days? Like what about us and Mel in the early days of what skills do we kind of bring to the table that gave us the edge to get Bushbalm to where it is?
Yeah, I mean, like other than just you being a likable person. So I think that's important.
Yeah.
I think like it wasn't like we didn't partner together because I knew this, but like we have very complementary skills. Like where I lack, like in marketing, all that sort of stuff, you pick up, you own that. Where you lacked in the beginning in design, like I was able to pick up, although you're fantastic at that now, just out of necessity of having to do it. But like our communication is like top notch. From our days at Shopify, we used Slack as our platform for communication. And that was like very much like we're very, very heavy in Slack, and we're always talking through ideas and like pitching things back and forth, posting what other people are doing. And we carried that over into Bushbalm. We got our own Bushbalm Slack and all that sort of stuff. But like I think we're always talking, we're always chit-chatting through, and there's no real limit. And so we just toss. I mean, we're both idea guys. Mm-hmm. I feel like we just toss things around, and like it just works that way. I don't know, like from your point of view, like what was I a likable guy or?
No. It was really the speed of how we do things, which I think is why it's been such a success. Because we could do something, say something, and then we make it happen.
Yeah.
And we are okay to say something as an idea, and everyone would be like, that's probably not going to work. And then we're like, okay, what's the next idea then? Like, let's just keep going.
Yeah.
So I think that's one reason, especially in a startup, is you get going, and any roadblock, you just have to like get by it and do whatever you can do to make it work.
Yeah.
So that's kind of between us. It's always been that way.
Yeah.
Like we do something, we try something else, we scrap something, we go ahead. So that's one thing, I'd say. And probably the other thing is just your ability to do all the things that I can't do. Like I don't have time for it. I don't understand manufacturing and like how we actually get all that done. Mm-hmm. That's the part where your background and just very operationally minded goes a long way. Whereas if I was just doing marketing and I didn't have that on the other side, I don't know if Bushbalm would stand a chance with any sort of kind of.
No, it wouldn't.
I would just sell everything and then it'd be sold out and there'd be nothing to sell, right?
I mean, early on, when we're talking a little bit about the founding story and how it was about smell and all that sort of stuff, like we pivoted quickly away from that once we knew that did not hit for marketing. Like the audience we were targeting was just not interested. And we pivoted quickly, and we weren't afraid to pivot like the entire basis of the business in order to meet the need and the need that we were getting feedback on, even from our customers and the reviews. I think pivoting, I think I don't know whether it's underrated or what it might be, but like we position ourselves, and even today, the business is in the position to be like flexible and agile and pivot quickly when we need to, and everybody stop what they're doing. Let's do this and do a hustle on this. I think we're doing that tomorrow for sales, right?
Yeah.
We're just built that way.
Yeah. And like we pivot for so many things. Like we've recently pivoted for supply chain issues. Like we're changing our launch schedule and how we do it just out of necessity that we have to. And with like people are seeing Facebook iOS changes. So we're pivoting how we spend and what we do. And I think, that is one of the reasons we move so quickly. It changes kind of how the output we get at the end. So one thing I see a lot is other founders and companies asking, like, how do you operate? How does the team run? Like as founders and kind of the full team, like how do you connect and how do you get things done or whatever? So why don't you, Rachel and Tim, talk a little bit about like our weeks and how we schedule them.
So I think one of the most important meetings and calls we have is our Monday kickoff. Kind of gets everybody on track for the week ahead. We look at things that happened last week. We talk about priorities that need to get done this week that are kind of like the non-negotiables, and then obviously try and share a few, what did you do on the weekend, just get everybody in the right mindset. We have a lot of weekly one-on-ones with relevant team members. I think specifically for marketing, I try and talk to the team members individually to see what's taking up their time, where I can jump in, where we maybe need to involve David or other team members.
I guess the going back to the Monday call. So that call is we do it at 9 a.m. on Monday, which is kind of weird time. It's like so early, but it really is like a casual catch up from the weekend. And it like sets the tone for what's coming up in the week, what we're doing, as well as it's like a good call to just be honest with people, I find. Because people like, if there's a letdown on shipping of some sorts, we know. And we're like, we're going to talk about it first thing in the week. And figure out what to do next. Like it's totally fine.
Yeah.
It's like your time to ask for help if you know you already need it.
Yeah, because you got a full week ahead. You can get help on it.
Yeah, that's good. The other one that, I mean, like David and I have our weekly that we've got set up on every like Tuesday morning at 9. I think it was at 8. I don't know why we're meeting that early, but
we had other jobs too.
That's right. I had to get the meetings in before the other meetings. Yeah. That kicks off the week pretty well for me as well. Like we kind of update each other what's going on like different sides of the operations of the business. And we do a lot of brainstorming. We talk about a lot of things. Like, I mean, yesterday in our meeting, like majority of it, we were talking about just kits and bundles. Yeah. It's not necessarily like our everyday work, but we just like jammed out for however, we spent a lot of time talking about kits and bundles. So nothing's really off the table. It's very much like just a conversation. Some strategy. We also have a strategy meeting on Wednesdays where we meet with one of our consultants for that. And I mean, all other meetings for me are just one-on-ones with the operations folks. I'm talking with Gabe and Amanda, product development, and then everything's just ad hoc from there.
And some of the other meetings that we do that are, I think, critical. So the Monday kickoff kicks everything into gear. Everyone gets rolling. Sometimes it kicks like work into people, I would say. And then we have a Tuesday morning call with a consultant for advertising. So Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, all these different places, which that is for our designer, like a real big kickoff for all kinds of work, where it's like, don't book for the rest of the day or the next day. Like
it's quick turnaround.
Designs are coming. Yeah, we need these done quickly, and you're on it. So those calls really do start the week. And then the one thing I would say from a kind of meeting perspective is we do have a few, like right now we're doing a new website with an agency, and those meetings and how they've run them is so useful for us because they give us deadlines and they tell us when they're coming and then what to bring to each meeting. So that's just one thing from kind of an agency side working with a startup. Organizing us that way is excellent. But I think you do need to have the very unstructured casual calls because that like builds the team dynamic, and also it like lets people be open with kind of issues they're experiencing or ask for help. So that's what our Monday call is for sure doing.
Wholesale meeting.
Oh,
a really good one.
Yeah, we just started that, the wholesale meeting. That's a very structured, let's report on how we did, how many more wholesale accounts we got. And that's a really quick turnaround cadence. And I think that's great we're building this new thing. So we all want to be involved and we all want to kind of hear about it. That's one of my new favorite meetings of the week, I'd say.
One thing I love about our meetings, other than the Monday that's a bit more casual, is like they're kind of like working meetings, all of them. Like they're either a brainstorm session or you're leaving immediately doing something, or we do it right in the meeting to get it done, which I think is
we're not afraid of doing an hour meeting in 7 minutes and then going and doing work.
Yeah, we don't just book meetings to have meetings. If we have a meeting, it's because something has to get done and probably pretty quickly.
Yeah. Awesome. And the other thing on like kind of the individual side, I think everyone on the team kind of has one-on-ones here and there to kind of stay connected and stay updated. And what I think, Rachel, you and I have more one-on-one working sessions.
Yeah.
Which like other people I have like more one-on-ones where we kind of talk through things or help with like other things. But yeah, you and I do like we work on things together, and that's kind of how we use our time, which I appreciate too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in to the Shopify Masters and the Bushbalm Miniseries. If you enjoyed following along the Bushbalm business journey, please leave a comment or ask a question. So hopefully we can help you in your business journey.